Do you want to make games? Join the WVU Game Developers Club. They meet every Thursday at 6:30 in the Evansdale Crossing, room 412. No prior experience is necessary. They help you make your first game, regardless of what background you have. Everyone is welcome. You can check them out on Twitter at WVUGDC. Also check out their Facebook page. We hope to see you there. Hey, and welcome to Game Talk episode 12. I'm your host, Ahmed Mian. I'm joined by Connor Haynes.
Hey, guys.
And Michael Dumeyer.
Hello.
And we're going to start this week off by talking about high-end VR, more specifically the HTC Vive. So there's a reason I want to talk about the Vive, and it's because I just had my first experience with the Vive, and it was pretty transformative. It blew my mind, even though I have played PlayStation VR extensively. After I experienced this, I definitely thought this is on a whole other plane, like a whole different echelon of like immersive gameplay.
Really?
Yeah. Have either of you two played the Vive or the Oculus?
I have had a Vive on my head briefly, but played is definitely a strong word. It was more like just long enough to like walk around the room a little bit.
Okay.
I don't even think I had the hand controls.
Mm-hmm. Michael?
I've never touched a Vive or an Oculus.
Have you tried VR in general ever?
Yes. I've tried PSVR and
right, okay.
Gear.
Both of you have tried PlayStation VR. So, okay, the best way I can describe it, imagine just the experience you had in PlayStation VR, but just everything from, like, the fidelity of, like, what you see to just the smoothness of the experience amplified immensely. So, for a little bit of context, last weekend I went to Columbus, Ohio with my friend, and we checked out a VR arcade.
Ooh.
And it was pretty expensive, but I will say it was worth it. So it was something like they had a bunch of Vive set up, right? And you could pay to like rent one of the stations out for however much time. So we paid like $30 for 30 minutes.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was pretty expensive, but it was insane, like the experience. And there's a few reasons as to why I think this was much more potent to me than PlayStation VR. One is definitely the motion controls. Way more precise, way more just natural feeling. Like, they felt more like extensions of my hands.
Yeah, I noticed with the PlayStation VR that, like, I could tell when my hands went behind my body or something.
Right.
Because they would lose tracking and stuff. But
Yeah.
I thought the PlayStation VR was actually pretty accurate.
It was, but then I tried this, and I was like, this is way, way better. It's just, I didn't even have to think of them as controllers. They just felt like extensions of my hands.
Wow.
And the second component of it was the sort of freedom of movement, right? So like Oculus and PlayStation VR kind of have you tethered, and you're not really supposed to be moving much when you do those. But with the Vive, there's like this whole bounding box where you can move freely around because the tracking is so accurate on the helmet. And that really was a game changer to me. It definitely felt more like I was existing in the virtual world than it did with the PlayStation VR, because I wasn't just sitting there looking around. I was actually moving and interacting.
How big was your play space? Because I've heard that you need...
It was pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like several feet by several feet. So you could actually walk steps in
I've heard
any
Vive
direction.
claim that, like, it takes very little to get the experience, but it just seems to me like you would be really shooting yourself in the foot if you bought this and put it in a small play area.
Right, no, you definitely need a wide-ish area to fully experience this. So, like, I tried it out, and they had several games, like, loaded on their whatever they were using. And one game in particular, it wasn't even a game, I would say. It was more of like an experience. It was just basically, I don't know if you guys have played it, but it's called, like, Tower or something. Whatever, the name doesn't matter. But the idea is that you start out, you get in an elevator, and then you go up to, like, the highest floor building of this, like, giant skyscraper.
Oh, yeah, I've seen this,
Right.
yeah.
So when you get to the top, like the roof of the building, there's a plank just jutting out into the open. And so the idea is you walk onto the plank and you look down and you see like buildings and cars and people below you. And the experience, like the experience the Vive provided was so real. My brain like fought against my body to take steps forward onto that plank.
Wow.
Like each step had to be deliberate, and I had to make myself do it. Because even though physically I knew like I'm just like in a room right now. I probably look really weird to everyone around me. But like my brain was telling me do not take any more steps forward. I had to like force myself to do it.
Wow.
And just the fact that like that had so much control over me is mind-blowing to me. Especially considering the fact that we're still in generation 1 of VR technology, right?
Right, yeah. That's
Like-
what I've been holding off for, is I've been waiting for generation 2.
And I feel like generation 2 must be around the corner. It's been like over a year, right?
Right, it has
So
been.
the technology is already that good to trick our minds like that. It just it amazes me and excites me to think where it could go in the future. But to just sort of finish off that story, so like I stepped out onto the plank, and the guy who was like supervising was just like, you should try stepping off the plank. I was like, okay. So like I put one foot out, and then like immediately put it back. Like stepping off was definitely way harder than going onto the plank.
Yeah.
But when I finally did it, like nothing happened. I just like stepped off and like was just floating there, and then I just suddenly just dropped.
Oh.
And then I felt my stomach drop, and I actually like crouched down, like I wanted to curl up, like as if I was actually falling, like as a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
As I approached the ground, I felt my stomach was in my throat, and I actually let out like a little yell. I yelled because like just the adrenaline of the moment, because my brain was expecting an impact.
Yeah.
But obviously,
Yeah,
I
there's
hit
nothing-
I hit the ground. The screen actually went white, which was kind of creepy. I guess it simulated death. But so like everything just went white. But like obviously I didn't feel anything or anything like that. But my brain experienced all of that. And afterwards, I was just like, oh my God, this is the craziest VR thing I've ever done. And it's such a shame because I don't think the PlayStation VR or the Oculus could provide something like that, because you're supposed to be completely stationary when you use those things. And the whole idea of this one is to willingly move somewhere where your brain doesn't want you to go and experience something.
See, the Oculus Rift actually has an expansion now that you can attach to it so that it can do room scale.
Oh,
just
I
like
didn't
the
know
Vive.
that.
Yeah, it does.
That's really cool.
It I think it brings the total up to like $450.
Yeah, that's
instead
not
of
bad. Like,
$400.
uh,
yeah, all VR's had a price drop recently. I think
Yeah.
the Vive is $600 now, and the
all
Oculus Rift
VRs,
is
I think,
$400.
except for the PlayStation VR, which makes sense. Like,
It was already
when
the cheapest,
PlayStation
yeah.
VR came out, by virtue of it being the cheapest and like by how many PS4s were out in the wild, it like outsold the other two headsets combined.
Oh yeah.
And now that Oculus is getting more competitive with its pricing, Vive I don't think so much.
HTC, I have heard recently that financially their VR department is not doing great.
Right? Yeah, I read about that
I'm
too.
not convinced that they're going to continue producing VR stuff
Mm-hmm.
for very long, which has me hesitant to buy a Vive, honestly.
Right. Well, I think at this point, if you were looking into VR, I would maybe just wait for like the quote unquote Gen 2 of whatever that's going to be of VR.
That's what I'm doing. I almost like, after I hear stories like yours, I almost feel pedantic talking about my issues with VR, but like I've heard about the screen door effect, things like that, and like
Can you?
the screen door effect is where you can see pixels basically because the screen is so close to your
Oh.
face, so you can kind of see a grid over.
That's
what you're looking
interesting.
at.
Yeah, no, I never.
You never
experienced
saw
that.
Okay.
No.
I experienced that with my Google Cardboard, but obviously that's far lower
Right.
resolution.
I think the
and I
higher end you go with VR.
I felt it just a little bit on your PSVR, but like after a couple of minutes, I was ignoring it because I was into the game.
Yeah, I mean, with the Vive, the refresh rate was so high, like it didn't feel like I was looking at any sort of virtual display at all. It just felt like I was looking around outside or something, you know? Like,
Yeah.
and which obviously that high refresh rate is key to like having a really good experience.
Right, yeah. I mean, games are going to have to adapt because, like, you know,
Yeah,
30 frames per second
Even
is like
with
the norm right
even
now.
with Sony, I was reading in their one of the slides for the VR conferences when it first came out. They told developers that 90 FPS is the absolute minimum
oh,
for
yeah.
PSVR games, and obviously Vive probably targets higher frame rates.
I think that the Vive is 90 hertz,
Oh, really? I mean,
which would make 90 the minimum there, too.
Yeah,
I could be
it
wrong.
felt-
It could be 120.
yeah. I mean, I've done 90 obviously with PSVR, and it feels great for the most part.
Right.
But yeah, I just kind of wanted to share that story because, like, when VR first came out, I was a huge proponent of it, and I still am, obviously, but I think the chatter's kind of fallen off a little bit because it's a great device, but there's such a high barrier to entry. You have to have all this technology previously there, like a PlayStation or a high-end PC, as well as the price. But I don't think that should deter anyone because, well, obviously, price is a huge factor, but, like, if you're considering dropping a lot of money on something like this, I would say go ahead and do it because it really is a transformative experience, and I can't wait for it to get more mainstream.
Right. I feel like the games just still aren't there for me, like, to buy it, I feel like.
I mean, well, it depends on what you're looking for in a game. Like, those long, like, 40-hour RPGs aren't there, but
Right.
but PlayStation VR has accumulated, like, a huge library of VR games already. In the first year, over 100 games were released.
Right, and there's a ton of games on Steam as well for VR, but, like, a lot of them are just so small, I guess. Like, I don't have a problem with a short game. Like, I like a 10-hour experience maybe, and in VR, I could probably go for less than that just because of the setting.
Yeah.
But I don't want to buy a game that I will have experienced everything the game has to offer in 20 or 30 minutes, really.
No, I completely
Or
understand that.
It's not even that I don't want to buy a game like that. It's that I don't want to buy an expensive console to play games like that.
Right.
But I think the games are coming. Like, for
I
instance,
definitely think they're coming. I think
Resident Evil's here. Doom VFR is coming, and
Right.
Doom VFR looks amazing.
I think for the first year or so of development, developers thought of creating like little experiences rather than games.
Right.
And I think
I
that's
feel like
totally okay.
They
I-
needed to get stuff out there.
Yeah, and they needed to like flex their muscles kind of, and that's like the perfect way to do it while supplying like the players with bite-sized experiences. They can go to their friends and be like, "Oh, look at this. This is so incredible." So like that's out of the way and done. I feel confident in saying that there's probably plenty of really robust VR games in development now. Even when we just like a little anecdote here, when we went to Shell Games and we talked to them, they were like, "Yeah, over 50% of our team is working on VR games now," and that was like a year ago, right?
Right, yeah.
So like that transition's happened. Like it's just a matter of time before those games start hitting the market.
Right. I got to see the fruit of their labor at the Serious Play conference I went to
Yeah.
a couple months ago, and it is very good. Just
Yeah.
very fun looking stuff. I don't know how much of what I saw is like public. I didn't sign anything, but
Yeah.
it was very good looking. It was like a chemistry game, and it was supposed to be educational, but they were targeting like a standard consumer as well, and it looked incredibly fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely still think a lot of people will disagree with me, but I still think the VR revolution is going to happen where like it's just a matter of time before it goes extremely mainstream and everyone's going to be drinking the VR Kool-Aid. Yeah, I mean, I always tell people you have to see it to believe it. It's just one of those things.
Right. It's definitely very fun.
Any other thoughts on VR, guys? I know we've done this topic before, but that experience was just so incredible to me. I wanted to bring it up again and sort of revisit it.
Just another reason to wait for next generation VR. I believe there are a lot more companies getting in the game, which will mean more competitive pricing. Because, the more people...
Do you mean companies for actual VR sets?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Like, meeting the Steam VR spec, basically, the same way HTC does.
Mm-hmm.
There are more companies getting in that game. I think Microsoft is trying to get into it. Asus, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong.
I would believe that.
But yeah, there's definitely competition coming, and competition is very good for technology like this.
And we're already seeing like a stratification of VR. Like we have the low end on mobile, we have like the mid tier on console, like with PlayStation 4, and the high end with Oculus and Vive. And like each of those three sort of tiers is just going to get expanded upon as more and more companies come in. So like even if you don't want to have the crazy blow your mind to smithereens high fidelity VR experience, you could probably just get one for your phone that serves the same purpose. It might not blow your mind, but it's the same concept, and it'll introduce more people to VR. All right, so anything else for VR?
No, I think you covered it well.
All right, definitely try it out if you haven't. Okay, our next topic is going to be another topic we've actually had before, mobile gaming, specifically focusing on the recently released Animal Crossing mobile. of the three of us, I think only Connor has played it, so I'll let him give a sort of introduction, and then we can chime in.
Right. So as of recording, it's not actually out. I had to download the APK illegitimately
Nice.
to play it a little bit, but the things I do for podcasting. So the reason I think it's Animal Crossing. So it converted fairly well. They basically took Animal Crossing and they cut a lot of the bloat, I guess. Like they really, I mean, it feels like a full Animal Crossing game in a way. I mean, looking at it so far, the only thing I feel like it's missing is the museum, and I may have just not gotten to that part yet. But it really feels like a beautiful transition of that game. Like you have your neighbors walking around, you can talk to them. You have fishing, collecting fruit, all that junk. It's all there. And I actually what I want to talk about is how they did their microtransactions. And I haven't played it enough to say for sure if this holds true. I think that they have put the microtransactions in such a way that it actually reinforces normal gameplay. Like, because Animal Crossing to me was always a game where you should walk around and hang out and not worry about making 1,000,000 bells an hour and stuff. Like, not try to min-max it and stuff. I felt like I always eventually would optimize the fun out of the game for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they chose to do microtransactions force you to slow down if you don't want to pay real money. And I think that's brilliant in a way. Like
I feel like a lot of people would take the opposite stance, though.
Really?
Yeah, like if they force you to play a certain way unless you pay. You know, like
Right.
you can see how that sounds kind of bad.
Right, but I mean, all games are forcing you to play a certain way, whether you realize it or not. That's just what games do.
I suppose that's true, but when there's like an option that's clearly unlockable by money, that fact becomes very evident and very
I mean,
kind
it's
of
not
unpalatable.
it can't really be a pay-to-win game, though, because you can't win Animal Crossing to begin with. If you know what I'm saying? Like, It's very much just, like, pay to play more, I guess. Like, basically what you can pay for is to make stuff happen faster. So
Okay, so a lot of mobile games have kind of used that paradigm for microtransactions.
But I think it just fits Animal Crossing a lot better than it fits a lot of other games. Because, like, you go, and it used to be you would shake your tree or whatever in an Animal Crossing game, the fruit would fall off, and that would be it. That was done for the day. Like, you got that fruit. You couldn't do it anymore. Now you can, like, it shows you a little timer if you want, and it shows you that you have 3 hours until that tree is going to produce fruit again.
That's a very classic technique.
And you could pay to make it produce fruit faster. But, like,
Nintendo will make a killing from this.
Yeah.
Like, an absurd amount of money from this. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I just think that, like, I don't know. I could be wrong, but, like, to me it seems like it's going to force me to slow down, which is something I wish had been, I don't wish it had microtransactions, but I wish that the mainline Animal Crossing games had put more emphasis mechanically into slowing you down.
Interesting.
And I think this is an interesting way to do it, and it kind of, I mean, it's not perfect, but I think it really, two birds with one stone.
Right. So I don't have too much to comment on Animal Crossing because I don't really play it, but I do think it's an interesting discussion in that now we have Nintendo that have released, it wasn't technically Nintendo, but it's a Nintendo-owned property. Pokemon Go, released by Niantic, Mario Run, and now Animal Crossing.
And Fire Emblem.
There was a Fire Emblem
There's
game?
a Fire Emblem game
Wasn't
for
it
mobile.
Fates?
Yeah, I think so.
Was it an actual, like,
It was a Fire Emblem game.
strategy, like
I
a
did not play
traditional Fire Emblem game?
It was, but the microtransactions were to get heroes, basically. So it had, I think it was a loot crate system,
Oh, I
boy.
see. Okay.
sort of, and you would get crates by playing the game, or you could buy crates.
Okay, great. So, like, Nintendo's put out all these mobile games already with some of their, like, flagship franchises.
Right.
So they are clearly doubling down on mobile, which is smart. It's the fastest growing market. It's very lucrative.
And I'm very happy they're doing it, because I mean, Nintendo, in my mind, other than indie games, Nintendo has done the best work in mobile. Other than, like, maybe Minecraft, which is just a port of a console game. But, like, they've carefully, like, they don't just take an intellectual property and put it on mobile. They carefully picked one that they thought they could do something with.
Right.
Like, obviously they had to do Mario, and I think they fairly gracefully transferred him to mobile.
I would agree. Yeah.
And but Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem both stand out to me as just genius moves.
Yeah, so like when we talked about mobile before, I was vehemently against it and I just straight up hated it. But now, like in the time that has passed, seeing what Nintendo's doing with mobile, if big developers and publishers can kind of emulate what they're doing, I would be like I wouldn't be as against it. I mean, I think what they're doing with mobile is great and very smart. The only thing I kind of worry about is like how if like will it impact their handheld space? And if it does, like that would be a huge shame to me.
I don't think it will. Well, okay, so we gotta take a two-pronged approach if we're talking about how things are going to impact Nintendo's handheld space, because the Nintendo Switch is a hybrid console.
Right.
So I think Nintendo going forward, it's going to be your Nintendo Switch and your phone. That's just the vibe I'm getting right now.
I completely would probably think that's true.
Especially since they're like emphasizing the Nintendo app and stuff for the Switch online.
Their official language kind of confuses me though. They still act as if the Switch is a console, and they still act as if their handheld line is completely separate, which I guess they might just be doing that because the 3DS is still a thing and they don't want to sort of cannibalize its sales and its appeal. And maybe once 3DS sales fall off and they stop manufacturing them, they're just like, okay, Switch is the handheld.
I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure
console.
at first they tried to act like the 3DS wasn't replacing the DS at one point.
Okay.
Like they
so
released the
this
DSi.
might just be a
It's a very Nintendo move.
Yeah.
They just do that.
Yeah, so and you can already see them sort of doubling down on mobile technology, like with the Switch. I know it's not a very popular choice, but their game chat is done through mobile. They don't have like
right, and I thought that was horrible
a chat
at first.
system.
But now that I'm seeing like if they can do integration with apps in their games correctly, like a lot of games have tried to do integration with a mobile app or something.
Right, yeah.
And I don't think anybody's really done it well yet, but if anybody's going to, it's Nintendo, right?
Right, and if they pull this off, right, like we'll all look like fools because we cursed them earlier for doing this, but if they do it right, they prove that they were just looking forward into the future and seeing things more clearly than the rest of us were.
Right, and it wouldn't be the first time Nintendo did that, but if they fail, it wouldn't be the first time Nintendo did that either.
Yeah, Nintendo's a real kind of wild card when it comes to that sort of situation. But that's one reason I love them so much. They take the risks. Like, whether they're good or bad, they just deal with the consequences. But they do take the risks, and they do try to innovate. Michael, do you have anything to say about this?
Not really.
Okay. Not a big Nintendo guy, I guess.
Yeah, I only had time to play Animal Crossing for like 20 minutes or so before I came here.
Mm-hmm.
And my only complaint was that it's a lot of tutorial going through.
That seems to be a staple for a lot of Nintendo games. But
yeah.
I have a question for you guys. Obviously, Nintendo is seeing probably how well these mobile games are doing and thinking, okay, what other franchises could translate really well to mobile? I think, obviously, Pokemon, like a mobile Pokemon RPG style game, would be absolutely nuts.
I don't think that'll ever happen.
Why not?
Because they said they were developing for the Switch.
They're developing the next mainline Pokemon game for the Switch, but I could see like a mobile version as well.
I think
maybe not for the next one, but for the iteration after that.
I think it's more likely for you to get a companion app for your new Pokemon game, where like maybe you don't need to have your Switch on you, but you could trade Pokemon on your phone or something.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Or maybe like a Pokemon Amy style thing that you can have on your phone.
Yeah, the possibilities really are endless. Like,
it's
such a tool for like a creative force like Nintendo to use.
But I think in releasing the Animal Crossing game they just released, they're making a strong statement that they are not making their franchises continue on mobile. They're making
standalone.
Yeah, standalone. Yeah. Like it's a spin-off more than it is the actual game. Like they didn't make a Mario game, they made Mario Run. They didn't make an Animal Crossing game, they made an Animal Crossing camping game.
They're very adept at taking their kind of like established IP and like reformatting them to appropriately fit the mobile platform.
Right, and they've very intelligently, like, thematically done it, too.
Yeah.
Like, a campsite is smaller than a town, and that's, like, the obvious, like, that just seems so obvious to me
Right.
now that they've done it, but it never crossed my mind before.
Right, yeah. Yeah, no, I'm interested to see, like, obviously Sony and Microsoft sees this, and they're thinking and R&Ding things, but Nintendo's sort of the only one that's really acted on it. I can't think of any Sony or Microsoft big IPs on mobile
Right, me
right off
neither.
the top of my head. I'm sure they're coming, though. We'll see how well those do. Yeah, I just hope that... Well, I mean, let's face it. Handheld gaming's pretty much donezo, aside from the Switch. Like, you're never going to see another PlayStation handheld, and you'll never see a Microsoft handheld. I would be willing to bet money
Oh,
on
yeah,
that.
no. Microsoft's
So,
not touching that with a 100-yard
Nintendo's
stick.
pretty much conquered that market with the Switch, and everything else is going to be on mobile. So, it'll be interesting to see how all of this sort of shakes out in the years to come.
Yeah, it will be, for sure. I do still see, like, that leaves this huge gap in my mind. There's no room for the 3DS developer anymore.
So, if Nintendo's really serious about the console hybrid idea, then the 3DS developers just kind of fold into the sort of Wii U developers, I guess, if that's how you want to think about it.
Right, but that's just too... A 3DS studio, 3DS game's budget is going to be lower than a console game
Right,
budget.
so-
And we've talked about this before.
I don't know
last
if you.
time we talked about.
I don't know if you know this, but there are certain Switch games that only work in handheld mode.
Oh, really?
There's handheld only Switch games. So I feel like
Why?
because those were probably intended to be handheld games.
Okay, but that just seems like you're shooting yourself in the foot feature-wise.
I mean, but that's
or does
what
it use the touchscreen? Okay, that would... Yeah, okay.
I don't know
Answered my
what
own
games
question.
specifically do it, but like that opens up that avenue for those developers to kind of just seamlessly transition onto Switch without too much hassle, I think.
Right, but it's still, like, that doesn't help, like, bad assets look better in low resolution, and developing for that low resolution is just no longer an option, really.
I mean, but why couldn't it be? Like, why couldn't you just have, like...
Because you're going to look like an idiot.
No, but like, if your game's fun, like, does how your game look really matter? That's
Yeah.
never been...
It
I don't think
matters.
Nintendo's been too big on that, and
Okay, a
they're
game having-
very successful.
Having a good resolution, good lighting, good graphics is not important. Having a good aesthetic is.
Right.
Like, if
And
I look at
don't
a
think-
game
I don't think the resolution and the lighting... I mean, obviously it contributes to aesthetic,
feel
but
like-
like you can have a good aesthetic without those
you
things.
could get away with being worse on a mobile game, or not on a mobile, on a portable console than you could on a home console, and the Nintendo Switch has effectively destroyed that space. And maybe that's fine. Like, maybe we didn't really want that space to be there to begin with, but I don't know. I mean, it hurts the ecosystem. And
It'll
we gotta
just make
see
it
how-
that much more exciting in 15 years when it becomes cool to like make handhelds again and like everyone, you know, like
Oh, yeah, I
these
mean,
things are
yeah.
like they work like yo-yos.
Right.
What's old will become cool one day.
I have heard this is totally conjecture, but I've heard theory that Nintendo is going to release a virtual console only portable. Just rumors.
I would be kind of mad if they did that.
Really?
Why can't they just put their virtual console on like the Nintendo eShop for their Switch?
Well, no, I want the Switch to have a virtual console, but I would not say no to like a smaller handheld that is
I mean,
just virtual console.
that makes sense with what they're doing with this SNES Classic and like
Yeah,
all of that.
right?
So like I think they're definitely going in that
like
direction.
when they
They've
released
already-
the Game Boy Classic,
They've
it's going to
already
play everything.
filed like patents for N64 Classic and stuff. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have not seen
That's
that.
definitely coming next year.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's not super surprising.
But yeah,
I swear to God, if it has Donkey Kong 64 on it, I will buy it in a heartbeat.
Does
it
do
won't
you think,
because rare.
how
you know.
close do you think they're going to get? Like how far? Like, are they going to do a GameCube Classic? I mean, probably.
I don't know. Like
right?
I would love a GameCube Mini. You know, like GameCube was one of my favorite consoles.
But
but
like, if they get all the way to the Wii, then
yeah,
suddenly...
then it's sort of just redundant. Wii U Classic.
yeah, like no, not really.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really consider that a classic.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they'll stop after N64, or maybe they'll stop when they get to the HD era. I feel like that might make sense.
We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, but yeah, we kind of veered off topic, so I
Yeah.
think we should just move on to the last one.
I agree.
I want to bring up something before,
Sure.
because they could release a Donkey Kong 64 on the N64 Classic. Because, well, Rare made the game. Nintendo owns the entire IP, so all the games that Rare made for them with Donkey Kong, they own.
Is that how
They-
that works?
Yeah, they recently released Diddy Kong Racing on the DS.
Was Donkey Kong Country on the SNES Classic?
Maybe.
Because if not, I mean, I feel like that's the.
I feel like they can't because rare legal issues. That's what my gut
I mean,
instinct says.
they re-released Diddy Kong Racing after Rare was bought up by Microsoft.
Well, Microsoft and Nintendo have been kind of friendly lately, so I wouldn't be surprised if like they worked something out.
Like the only thing Rare did in their re-release of Diddy Kong Racing, or Nintendo did in their re-release, was cut out all the Rare characters, which was just Conker and Banjo.
I have one more point to make
Okay.
in regards to Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. Classic Nintendo move, thinking that they could pull off a soft release in only Australia. Like, literally.
What was the logic behind that?
I think they just wanted to like work out the bugs first and stuff before they release worldwide.
Australians beta test this.
But like,
That's really funny, actually.
I was able to download it the day after the Nintendo Direct. Like,
Yeah.
somebody just ripped the APK and
Yeah.
uploaded it, and I was like, oh, don't mind if I do.
I
And
honestly think it was an accident that Nintendo released it in Australia.
I don't think that. I
That's
think
really kind of like
that'd be an
well,
insane.
that's
accident.
such an insult to like Australian fans. Kind of, they're just like, here, find all the bugs for us, and then we'll release it to the rest of the world.
I mean, and Nintendo's always liked to do their regional releases and stuff, and I just feel like it's insane that in the year of our Lord 2017, they're still trying that. No one does that anymore.
Yeah, Nintendo's crazy.
You
I
know?
think that's the best statement to sum up this segment.
Yeah.
All right. So our last topic is going to be sequels in video games. Yeah, just like movies, video game sequels to me it seem to follow the same sort of arc where like the first one is like okay, it's a class, it turns into a classic. It might not be the most sound mechanically or anything, but like it's still beloved by people who look back on it. The second one is usually, like the oh my god, I can't believe this is this good. And then the third one is just sort of like it's good, but meh, right?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true.
That's the sort of law for trilogies and movies, and I feel like it really applies to games as well.
Yeah, I think that's true. I'm sitting here thinking of Street Fighter, and nobody's ever heard of Street Fighter 1, really.
Yeah,
Like, it was only an arcade cabinet. I don't even think it came to like the NES or the Super NES.
right.
But then Street Fighter 2 came out, everybody loved it, and you also don't really hear about Street Fighter 3 at all.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, like,
that's the arc. I think you're right.
yeah, so many, like, just off the top of my head, Assassin's Creed.
Oh, yeah.
First game came out, people loved it. It was such a fresh idea at the time. It was innovative, but like were definitely problems gameplay wise and narrative wise. And then like Ubisoft obviously took that feedback in, and then okay, Assassin's Creed 2 comes out, instant hit.
Yeah.
It's still probably to
changes
this,
the open world
yeah,
game.
it's still
forever.
probably
Yeah.
to this day the most beloved Assassin's Creed game. It definitely had the most impact on the industry. And then 3, no one ever talks about 3.
I
Yeah,
mean,
because it was mediocre entirely.
in between 2 and 3, there were 2 other games that released.
Yeah, like 2.5
So-
and 2.8.
I'd probably consider Brotherhood the third game in that series, even though it wasn't a numbered
Right.
sequel. And Brotherhood did well. So did Revelations.
Right. There's a lot of like weird politics almost, I would say, in video game sequels. People, I don't know if it happens as much as it used to, but a lot of times publishers or just the holders of IPs will attach an IP to a game even though those games have nothing to do with each other. For instance, Super Smash Bros. Was originally going to be a fighter game. It's not really a sequel. That was a bad example. Let me change. Super Mario Bros. 2, as it released in the United States, that was not a Mario game in Japan at all. It didn't have any Mario characters in it. When they went to release it in the West, they were like, oh, nobody's going to get this. Let's put Mario in it.
Yeah, I mean, but that's smart.
Yeah.
It's not, yeah.
I mean, sometimes it is, but like Street Fighter did the same thing with before Street Fighter 2 came out, they had Street Fighter 2010, which was a platformer
yeah.
that nobody played, and it had nothing to do. It didn't even have any Street Fighter characters in it. They just attached the title so that they could sell more copies.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a technique used to just get more sales. But obviously, if you have a trilogy thought out from the beginning, obviously your games are going to be more cohesive than if you do it that method. But right now, just sort of to a little tangent here, I'm trying to rack my brain and think of an example of where a third game in a series was better than the first two. And I'm having difficulty doing it.
I kind of want to say, like, the third game, relative to some series, where,
I mean, Civilization?
yeah, Civ catches that. Because Civ's always gotten better with sequels.
I don't think a lot of people would agree with that because I know
Civ 3 was
like,
viewed
just-
as one of the best Civs.
just like cursory looks at like online communities, a lot of people still swear by like Civ 4. And like when Civ 6 came out, a lot of people were just like, no, I don't like this. Civ 5's better. So like maybe with more iterations, people just develop tastes for certain games.
I mean,
I would-
Civ 2 was a a trash fire to many people. Like, it wasn't a great Civ, especially some of the expansions, because it was not developed by the original developers, and it was just kind of thrown out there. And a lot of people were just like, at least I think some of the expansions were, and they're just like, And then 3 came out, and it's like, this is the same game, but, better and not as broken.
What about Halo? I mean, I know a lot of people swear by Halo 2.
A lot of people
but
swear by Halo 2, but looking back, I would say Halo 3 is the king of all Halo games.
Halo 3 is the high point of the series. Yeah. Halo 2 kind of introduced some of the elements that were in 3, but it also had some issues.
I think Halo 2 was more impactful on the games industry, but Halo 3 was the best game.
Yeah,
I think
Halo
that's how
2
I want to put that.
Halo 2 cemented the multiplayer in Xbox Live as a thing, and Halo 3 kind of took it and ran with it and improved on every aspect of Halo 2. Like, there's parts that you didn't like. It's like, I don't like this part, and then it improved upon it.
Yeah, that's a really good example, actually. Yeah, I'm satisfied with that answer.
Super Mario Bros. Did the same thing. Because Super Mario Bros. 1, I mean, it's a classic, but it's very, very simple. Super Mario Bros. 2, or The Lost Levels, which was Super Mario Bros. 2 in Japan, both of those, they're pretty good. But then you look at Super Mario 3, and, like, if you've been playing the first 2, that game's going to blow your mind.
Right.
It's so good. Have you guys played it?
I haven't.
Okay, well, I'll talk about it later in my games I've been playing.
I'd also say, like, they're like Total War games. Every single Total War game has gotten better, and there's like 9 of them or 10. They've been doing it for a while, and there's only been a couple occasions where a game has gone backwards, and even then it's just because the devs messed something up somewhere along the line, or they tried something dangerous.
Right.
So that kind of like leads into something interesting I've been thinking about. Do you guys think that it would be smart that after a certain number of sequels in an IP to just end it and start a new IP, even if the developer's like really attached to it? Because like I feel like, yeah, you can introduce new things with each new game, but like it's obviously not going to be as creatively robust as a brand new idea, brand new IP.
I do. I feel like once the developers feel like they're having trouble coming up with new ideas, that is absolutely when you should quit. And I'm going to cite Spyro there. Insomniac, I think.
Insomniac and Naughty Dog did Crash.
Yeah, Insomniac did Spyro 1 through 3, and after Spyro 3, like, they had people asking when the next Spyro was going to come, and they're like, no, we're done.
They like jetted the IP out.
Did everything we could do. And then people were like, no, we need more Spyro, and they gave it to
the
other
Dragonfly
developers.
happened.
And yeah,
See, it's
atrocious
it's a
sequels
vicious
afterwards.
cycle because
Well, Heroes Tear was good.
people are like,
Okay.
yeah, we need more Spyro, or yeah, we need more of this game, and yeah, okay, maybe if you complain enough, you'll get it. But then eventually, the creators are just going to get burned out. And would you rather see your beloved franchise go off on a high note, or just like descend into mediocrity? you
Right,
know?
like Mega Man you had your Mega Man 1 through 8, I think, are the classic ones. And like towards the end there, they were getting pretty sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
And they just stopped making them because they were very sloppy. People weren't doing it anymore. And then like 10 years later, something crazy, they did 9 and 10 on the Wii. And like they had given it time to rest, and then they released these games, and they were actually very good because they had like given it time.
Yeah, I think, and that's like I think it's a very rare instance in the gaming industry, seeing like developers actually like move away from something something amazing they've made and just try something completely new. Just because, and I totally understand that. Like, you want to make money, obviously. A new idea is always more risky than like a sequel to a successful IP, right?
Right.
But I think one example that just pops up in my mind is Naughty Dog. They moved on from Crash after the PlayStation 1 era. They moved on from Jack after the PS2 era.
And Nate Drake is holding them a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean,
the Uncharted's
There's
1
a lot you can do
through...
with Uncharted, though.
And so there's Uncharted's 1 through 4, and then that spin-off. Or not the Chloe, the game that just came out.
I want to say it's a spin-off.
Yeah, so, and I would think, like, just by the tone of Uncharted 4 and, like, how it ended without getting into any spoilers, I would think that's a perfect way to end the franchise. But, obviously, I mean, Sony could come to Naughty Dog and be like, hey, here's a truckload of money. make more Uncharted.
I mean,
I wouldn't fault them for doing it, but I kind of hope that they test their creative metal in a new way.
I would posit another reason that they would keep making Uncharted games, and that is because the difference between the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2 technologically is massive.
Right.
Like the graphics fidelity.
I see where you're
and then
getting at.
PS2 to PS3, it's also massive.
But not PS3
But PS3 to
PS4.
PS4, not really.
Yeah,
like there's
I
nothing you can do on a
totally-
PS4 that you couldn't do on a PS3. You
I
can just do
totally
it better.
agree with that. Yeah.
That's where I think right now we're going to get stuck in a rut with a lot of IPs.
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't want to say we're approaching like the ceiling for power, but like we're not going to see a leap like from like the 8-bit era to the 16-bit era, you know?
I'm going to disagree with that too, though.
Oh, really?
because
Why is that?
Virtual reality. But I think that increase in power is going to make VR easier to develop for and also like more available to other people. So that's going to be our next big leap, because increasing the number of polygons on a flat screen eventually is going to not matter at all anymore.
So I agree with you, but I also kind of want to posit the notion that like I do still think that VR is not going to be like it's not going to be the logical next step forward. I think of it as like a step sideways. Like we'll have our VR games and like traditional games as well, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you. But I just don't think technologically, I just don't see where we're going to go from here. Because, like, I don't care about 4K at all. Like, and I'm a PC gamer.
Have you ever played in 4K?
I have. I've been to your house. Yeah, I've played on your 4K TV. And
Okay.
it just, I just don't care about it that much. Like, the difference between 720 and 1080 is huge to me. But on a monitor, the difference between 1080 and 4K is much smaller to me. So I think that's the wall we're up against. And we kind of went off on a tangent here.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think
I'm
like
gonna
where
bring it
did
back
we?
to sequels
Yeah.
a little bit,
I
but
do. I kind of want to plug something real quick.
Sure.
The best talk about sequels I've ever seen is Sequelitis on YouTube by Ego Raptor. And I think everybody should watch his video on Mega Man X. I don't necessarily agree with all the points he makes on his Ocarina of Time video, but his Mega Man X video is amazing. Those might be the same video, and he compares the two. I forget.
I don't think they are. Mega Man was its own video. Ocarina of Time was one he took a long time to do.
Okay, but it's very good. It's a very good analysis of sequels.
Nice.
But bringing it back to sequels, there's some cases, like look at the first Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare. Infinity Ward did not originally want to make a sequel to that, but Activision was like, it was really popular, piles of money, and they made 2 more games.
I mean,
Were they
what are you
good?
talking about? They make a Call of Duty game every year.
I mean, Infinity Ward was not wanting to make sequels. They were just like, this is going to be a standalone game, just like every other Call of Duty had been before that, which is its own game.
Right,
And
yeah,
then
that was the first time they did the whole, like, Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2.
Activision was just like, there's a pile of money waiting for you if you do 2 more. That's why at the end of Modern Warfare 1, it kind of just ends on a 0 sequel chance.
I think Call of Duty can be a topic unto itself.
Yeah.
Because it's such a massive, like, it's an unprecedented force, like, in gaming.
It is. It's bananas.
Yeah, maybe we can do.
mean-
we can maybe have a topic on that
And
next.
it has a million sequels, yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about like games that should have ended really a lot sooner than they did. Halo should have died after Reach. They should have just let it die.
I think it should have ended after 3, man. Like,
Reach was still a good game. It introduced enough that it was a good sequel. And once the second Bungie left, they should have just been like, okay, we'll shelve Halo for a while. We'll not touch it. We'll let people not be tired of it because 4 was atrocious compared to 3.
I agree that
Which is the same
343 has not been able to do as well
Yeah,
as
they
Bungie
haven't.
on
and
the Halo
Bungie,
games.
well, Bungie has like mythical status. There's not many. I feel like not many people who can compete with Bungie.
I mean, looking at Destiny 2 shouldn't happen. Destiny should have went the route of, Warframe, where they're just like, let's add more content onto this game and kind of evolve it. But it happened, and they kind of took it some steps down in some directions and some steps up in another.
I kind of agree with you there about Destiny 2, but that's because Destiny 1 was made at such a weird time, kind of. Because it wasn't really a next-gen game, and it wasn't really a previous-gen game. I think if they'd waited a year or two before they released Destiny 1, Destiny 2 would not have happened this gen.
I also, Destiny 2, like we were talking about, like the second game in a series always like being leaps and bounds above the first. I don't think that's the case with Destiny 2. Destiny 2, I mean, a lot of people say this and get flack for saying this, but it really does feel like Destiny 1.5 to me. Like, it doesn't feel like it just feels like the first game with basically like a bunch more expansions thrown onto it. That's how I personally feel about it, which is fine to me. Like, I love Destiny, and I love the idea of it as a service. I just don't know if it merited a sequel. But we already kind of talked about that a little bit last week.
Right.
Do you guys have any other thoughts on sequels?
I think we should all just say our favorite game sequel.
Uncharted 2,
boy.
easily.
That's a good one.
Oh boy, that's a difficult one. Give me more time.
I think I'm gonna go Super Mario Bros. 3.
Sarcastically, I'd say Sonic 06, but
Well, that's a reboot,
That-
not a sequel.
it's still in the chain. But really, my probable favorite sequel is. Oh, there's too many.
Dwarf Fortress is a sequel.
Yeah, but
It's Slaves to Arma, God of Blood 2.
yeah, but no one. They're so different. It's not even leaps and bounds. It's more like this is a whole nother game. We just kind of wanted to link the two together.
Yeah.
It's a case of the IP just being tacked on,
Right.
even though it's not really an IP.
Even though, yeah, it wasn't a valuable intellectual property
But-
at all. It's just a developer who didn't want to come up with another title.
I don't know. I want to say Assassin's Creed 2, but
That's a pretty good pick.
That's a fair pick.
yeah, there's a lot of sequels I played that I've really enjoyed.
All right, to keep talking about games, because we always end by talking about the games we played / games we recommend. I'll start off by mentioning one that I think pretty much everyone on the planet has played at this point, Minecraft.
Oh, yeah.
You don't even talk that long about that one.
My friend started a server on the PS4 a while back. This is a few months ago. I've just sort of intermittently been playing that just to kind of relax. And it is just so much fun. And the constant stream of updates keep it sort of fresh. But it's not even that. It's just Minecraft inherently is just such a replayable game. Like, it might be the most replayable game of all time, I would say. Due to the nature of like how it generates worlds with the seed value and all of that, like each world feels like a completely fresh experience almost. And that coupled with all the mods out for it, like Minecraft is sort of like the gift that never stops giving.
Oh, yeah.
And especially like on the server that my friend started, like I have a few friends who quite regularly play on it, and it's like sort of crazy because we've built like these huge structures and it actually looks like a civilization like has lived in that world. And it's just sort of cool seeing that come up over time. And yeah, I mean, like it's a game that I never really get tired of. Like I could always go back to and play it.
Yeah, it's very soothing to me.
Yeah.
I actually don't like building in Minecraft that much, but just like I like seeing what other people have built, and I like gathering resources and stuff. I find mining in Minecraft to be very zen, kind of.
Yeah.
I also I've been playing it recently as well, and I'm really, really enjoying that cross-platform multiplayer that you don't get to use because you have a PS4.
Yeah, that could be a topic too. That's for people who aren't aware, Microsoft, who owns Minecraft, has opened up cross-platform play between Xbox, PC, and Nintendo.
And mobile.
And mobile, and the only platform that isn't doing it is Sony, because Sony's being a butt about the whole situation. Microsoft's reached out to them multiple times trying to get like reach and understanding, but Sony refuses to let the cross-platform play happen.
Think of the children.
Yeah, that's their whole thing. We'll get into it
For
later.
the kids.
But yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to give a shout out to Minecraft, and I'll pass the torch to someone else now.
Very good game. I'll go next, and I've already name dropped it a couple of times. I've been playing Super Mario Bros. 3. And before like a year ago, I didn't know that there were good NES games. Like everything I'd played was like at my cousin's house. Like I'd played like these platformers with controls where like you would hit A and you would jump like a second later. Like they were just so sticky.
I can just imagine, like, after you said that, like anyone over 30 listening to this just like
Oh yeah,
broke their phone.
I'm 20 years old.
Yeah.
My first game console was a Super NES, and I think by the time I got it, Super Mario 64 had already been released and stuff. So I moved on to the N64 pretty quick. But I didn't think games really got good until the Super NES came out. And man, I was wrong. I've been playing. I'll also say I think the Mega Man games are fantastic. Now that I've delved into NES games a little bit. But Super Mario Bros. 3 did a lot of things that were just crazy. Like you had like diagonal scrolling, which hadn't been a thing really before that. Like you could either go up and down or you could go sideways. It hadn't really combined the two yet. And that there's a whole lot of technical mumbo jumbo I've been reading about that goes into that. But like it it's so much game. Like, honestly, I think I like it more than Super Mario World, which is the Super NES Mario. And this is the game that introduced the world map. It introduced like being able to save up power-ups. It had all these cool puzzles in the different castles that you had to solve. It had these amazing controls. It had like more power-ups than any other Mario game ever, I feel like. Like it just had a ton of power-ups. So many that recently I've played through the game like 10 times in the past couple of weeks, and there are power-ups I've never had a chance to use. I just haven't gotten them, or I haven't like gotten them at a time when I should use them. And it's just crazy.
Crazy that they crammed all of this into an NES game.
Yeah, all the secrets hidden in there and stuff. It was wild. Yeah, I just love that game so much.
Really cool. I definitely want to go back and play these old Mario games. My first Mario game and my first game was Mario 64, so I definitely missed out on a lot.
My first video game was Super Mario World on the Super NES.
Yeah.
It was going to be Star Fox, but I couldn't get the cartridge to work, so it was Super Mario World. What a twist of fate.
Yeah.
I'd be a totally different person today.
Probably. Michael?
So I dove back into Warframe because that game, you could like stop playing it for like a month, 2 months, and it's a whole different game.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
It's ridiculous how much that game's changed since I started playing it.
So they update it like really frequently.
Yeah,
you would say.
it's probably the poster boy for a living free-to-play game that constantly changes. Like at one point, the parkour system was entirely different, and then one update they're like, let's completely rework this system, and they made it better.
Michael, I have one question for you, and this is the reason I've never really gotten into Warframe. Is ammo more abundant now?
Yeah.
Okay, because back when I played it, I couldn't get through a level without totally running out of ammo and having to use my sword.
Wow.
When
was that?
It was probably 4 or 5 years ago.
That's probably why.
Yeah.
They've changed so much. Like the parkour is so much faster, and if you play the game like a normal shooter where you're staying on the ground, you're probably wrong. You're probably having a rough day because everything can shoot at you there. If you're jumping around and flying around and not really touching the ground, which isn't hard now, it used to be difficult because the parkour system was kind of obtuse. Now it's a lot more simple to get up in the air and keep moving around. You'll do fine. Like even like the grind has kind of been downtoned compared to when it first released.
It's a very good game. Didn't they recently release like a musical character
Yeah,
for
the
it?
musical character was released. They released a glass-based character that I haven't even touched yet in the new update.
So
Like I have the blueprints, I just haven't touched
just
it.
a sort of overview, Warframe's like a free-to-play game, right?
It's a free-to-play space ninja simulator. Pretty
Yeah,
much.
it's a lot like Destiny in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I've heard comparisons.
It's third
between the
person,
two.
right?
It is third person.
Right, and you go in and you run these missions and you get loot basically.
Nice.
And
okay.
then the most recent update was the giant plains of Edolan, which, and compared to the normal maps, which are all procedurally generated and very formulaic, the plains is one giant map. It's massive.
Oh, is it like an open world area?
It's pretty open. It's not an open world, but it's massive. Like getting from one end to the other takes at least a couple minutes, even with your like speedy parkour.
And you're playing this on PS4?
I'm playing it on PC.
Okay. It is available on PS4.
It's not on
Right,
PS4
yeah.
yet.
I think
It's
I
not- the update's not on
briefly
PS4 yet.
downloaded it at some point. No, it's on PS4.
The update isn't yet.
Oh, okay,
Plains of
okay,
Edolan. Like the thing about Warframe is that the PC, it kind of puts all their updates first on PC, and then once they have all the hotfixes out, they send it to console.
Okay.
Because instead of releasing it day one and getting it approved by Microsoft and all that crap and Sony
Well,
and all
no,
that crap,
this is a Sony. It's a Sony game, isn't it?
it's not a Sony game. It
Oh.
is independent. Digital
So is it out
Extremes
on
is
Xbox?
independent. Yes.
I did not know
It
that.
is on Xbox One, PS4, and PC.
I thought it was a PS4 exclusive.
Nope.
With PC.
It is. It was a.
You might have been
PC
thinking
first
about
game.
Paragon. I think Paragon's a PS4 exclusive.
I don't
with
think that is either.
PC. Really?
I don't think.
Okay, I might be wrong. Anyway,
But
Oh, I'm thinking of PlanetSide.
PlanetSide's also was PC first.
Yeah, I knew it was PC first, but I'm pretty sure it came out on PS4 and not on Xbox.
It might come out on Xbox sometime in the future,
Because
maybe.
it's a Sony online entertainment.
Not anymore.
Really?
The Sony Online folded. Like Sony, they completely folded and they turned into Daybreak.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know
So-
that. I haven't kept up with it.
Those games can go wherever. But Warframe's really unique in the way, like, the grinding is great. Like, it's fun to grind in that game. It's not like, oh, I have to grind this weapon to 30, because if you really wanted to grind a weapon to 30 real quick, you could do one mission, like one mission on a planet, and have that 1 to 30 grind done in like an hour, or at most. Like, it's quick.
nice. So it, like respects your time, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Like, sure, you have to fight high-level enemies, and you can't just grind it, but I go in there with one super powerful weapon and another 3 people who also have one super powerful weapon, and everything else is under-leveled because they're grinding out levels, and have it done in 2 runs of that mission. And the mission takes about 20, 30 minutes to do.
You're making me want to play this game again.
It's a load of fun. It's changed so much. Like, the melee system's changed since release. They upgraded that, made it more fun to use a sword instead of just press the melee button over and over again.
That's good.
And
that was
it
a
does
problem.
one slash animation. Now there's combos and
Oh,
everything.
wow. Okay. Yeah,
Like,
I
there's
definitely
stance
need to give
mods
this
and
another try
everything.
then.
Like, the last time you touched it was at release, I'd recommend coming back and touching it again because it's changed massively. Like, their parkour system's been overhauled. They have the bullet jump that you can kind of float in midair a little bit.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
It's ridiculous. And the weapons are all usable. It's wonderful.
I would say I would check it out, but I think those needs are all satisfied by Destiny for me. So
I mean, eventually Destiny, you're going to run out of content in Destiny. And Warframe, yeah, I will stop playing it for a month if I feel like I'm running out of content, and then come back a month later. It's like, oh, I have more content to do.
that's really cool that the sort of development cycle is that fast. But anyway, I think we're running kind of long, so I'm just going to end it here. I hope to see you guys next week.